show that when we unite, anything is possible. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank every one of my Senate Democratic colleagues who made the Inflation Reduction Act happen. Down to the 50th member, they are incredible. Let's have a round of applause for our great caucus. In normal times, getting any one bill through the Senate is difficult. But to pass the Inflation Reduction Act with only 50 Democratic votes in the Senate over an intransigent Republican minority shows how dedicated and persistent our caucus is. I applaud you all. And I applaud our great staffs who labored day and night to see this great work through. Thank you, staff. Thank you, staff. Thank you, staff. You made it possible. And of course, I want to thank Speaker Pelosi and every one of my House colleagues who worked to pass this bill. It's been a long process, but the House Democratic Caucus stayed the course, worked incredibly hard, and made this moment possible. Thank you all. And finally, I want to thank President Biden. We would never, never have gotten the Inflation Reduction Act done without his steady hand. For over a year and a half, he dared us to dream big, pushed us to aim high, and urged us to never let go of our promise to the American people, especially on climate. Like the rest of us, he persisted and persisted to push this bill over the finish line. He has restored dignity, respect, and a sense of action back to the Oval Office. So thank you, President Biden, for your incredible leadership. Americans are seeing what it looks like to have a president and a Congress that's focused on delivering results to make their lives better. Thank you for being here. Thanks for your tremendous work. On to future victories, everybody.
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, Leader Schumer, colleagues, staff. Again, let's hear it for the staff because the staff has made such a thing. And so many friends. What a thrill it is to be here to celebrate this life-changing legislation, making the Inflation Reduction Act. Inflation Reduction Act, so beautifully named for all that it does. As the name suggests, this landmark law is cutting costs and inflation fighting and driving down costs for kitchen table items for America's working families. Mr. President, thank you for unifying and inspiring a vision of a stronger, fairer, safer future for all, for our children. Your extraordinary leadership has made this glorious day possible. That's an applause line. Jill was applauding. And let us salute Leader Schumer, his colleagues in the Senate, for their extraordinary leadership and the success in bringing this bill forward.
That's an applause line.
I join him in saluting his colleagues, and I salute mine. I associate myself with most of Chuck's remarks, except, are there any Californians in the House? Are there any House members in the House? I want to salute all of my colleagues, especially our chairs, for making this day possible. This achievement is a testament to our unity, our optimism, our persistence, along with the tireless efforts, again, of a devoted staff. You can do it again. And I want to join Leader Schumer in thanking our passionate advocates out there whose outside mobilization made a decisive difference. Whether it's our friends in the environmental movement, whether it's our friends in labor, whether our young people who are insistent on this climate legislation, thank you. And today we'll hear from our VIP, Lovette Jacobs of IBEW, and she'll tell us that this law will make a direct, substantial difference in the lives of countless families. You'll hear from her shortly. When President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act, he not only made history, he made progress. When Congress passed this legislation, frankly, we jumped for joy. This is so exciting because of the transformative difference this law would make for America's working families. Lower health care costs. The authority of the HHS Secretary to negotiate for lower prescription drug costs, long sought for, finally achieved. And for our seniors on Medicare, we have a $2,000 cap on prescription drug costs. This is remarkable. $2,000 cost. And the extension of the ACA subsidies, all right, for 3 more years, lowering health care costs for up to $2,400 for a family of 4 for a year. This is quite, this is lowering costs, and now we'll talk about bigger paychecks. The historic achievements to combat the climate crisis, to save the planet, are so remarkable. Indeed, our climate action, the most consequential in human history, no country, not us ever, or any other country, made such an important progress on health, clean air, clean water, environmental justice for our children, job creation of a great magnitude, 9 million new good-paying jobs for our workers. And again, to keep us preeminent, as the leader said, preeminent, #1 in the world in new and green technologies. National security, from energy independence to lessening conflict over resources and habitat because of natural disasters. And our values. If you believe, as I do, that this is God's creation, and we have a moral responsibility to be good stewards of it, but even if you don't, we all agree that we have a responsibility to our children to pass on this planet in a responsible way. Thank you all for making this possible. And important, the law reduces inflation, and it reduces the deficit. And as the leader said, it is fully paid for by making the biggest companies and the wealthiest pay their fair share. Under the president's leadership, and with the stroke of President Biden's pen, we have achieved a monumental victory for America's working families. Indeed, this law fits comfortably among other landmark laws signed by the president. The rescue package to put shots in arms, money in pockets, children in school, people back to work safely. The bipartisan infrastructure bill with a commitment to environmental and economic and social justice. The CHIPS and Science Act, which supports diversity and inclusion and new people being involved in, again, keeping America #1. And the PACT Act to honor the service of our men and women in uniform, which is a big environmental bill. Of course, this public safety legislation, which we have celebrated here before, very much a part of it. Quite a package, unprecedented. Biden inspired, as president who put forth an agenda of fairness, justice, inclusion, and diversity, always, for the children. We made history, we made progress, and together we have put people over politics. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank all of you. God bless America from sea to shining sea. Thank you. Oh, we leave it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by the Vice President of the United States and IBEW member and Journey Level electrician from Boston Local 103, Lovett Jacobs.
What a beautiful day. It is good to be with so many extraordinary American leaders and friends, and I thank you all. President Joe Biden, members of our cabinet, members of Congress, and my fellow Americans. When the President and I took office, we made a promise. In the face of profound crises, and after years of gridlock, we promised the American people action. We vowed to build an America in which every person, no matter where they start, has the opportunity to succeed and to thrive. Over the past year and a half, because of the leadership of President Biden, we are delivering on that promise. Mr. President, in the darkest days of the pandemic, you saw the tremendous challenges facing our nation, but you also saw the tremendous courage and resilience of the American people. And you knew if we gave folks a chance, America would come through this crisis stronger than ever. And we have. Today, students are back in school. Mostly the parents clapping there. Parents are back at work. Small businesses are growing and thriving again. And for decades, leaders in Washington talked about rebuilding our nation's infrastructure. Well, we are doing it. And I'll offer you an example. Earlier this year, I met a woman named Deanna in Milwaukee. Her son, Aiden, had been hospitalized twice for lead exposure. The second time for 2 weeks, just for drinking water from the kitchen sink. No child should ever have to endure that. No parent should ever have to endure that. And that is why I am proud to say that we are on track to remove every lead pipe in America in 10 years. And today, we are gathered to celebrate another historic step forward for our nation. The Inflation Reduction Act will help millions of Americans build a better future for themselves and for those they love. In a moment, the President will speak about the many ways this law will benefit our nation. I'd like to focus on one. For my entire career, whether I was District Attorney of San Francisco, Attorney General of California, or a United States Senator, I've worked alongside so many of the advocates here and leaders to protect our communities from the climate crisis. And in that time, I have seen what we have all seen. For decades, our nation has failed to meet the climate crisis with the urgency it demands. However, today, because of you, members of Congress, state and local officials, labor leaders, climate activists, and community organizers, and because of our President, Joe Biden, America is leading on climate, not just with declarations, but with action. Mr. President, over the past year and a half, you have reminded us time and time again that there is no challenge too big for America. You have reminded us just how much we can accomplish when we work together. On behalf of the American people, thank you for your vision, for your leadership, and for your unwavering faith in the possibility of America. And it is now my honor to introduce a leader who is helping turn that possibility into reality, a proud union worker and fifth-year electrical apprentice at IBEW Local 103 in Boston, Lovette Jacobs.
Oh. Thank you, Madam Vice President. It's such an honor to be here to speak to you all today. My name is Lovette Jacobs, and I'm a proud member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. My home, yes, thank you. I love you too. My home base is Local 103 out of Boston, Massachusetts. Go Pats. My career with the IBEW has positively impacted me. It's given me endless opportunities that have in turn changed my son and I's life for the better. Sorry. So, you can only imagine how big of an honor it is right now to introduce our next speaker, a true friend of the IBEW. As we all know, Plenty of promises are made around election time. Sadly, many of those promises aren't kept, but not President Biden. In April of 2020, yeah, round of applause for that. In April of 2020, when the pandemic was on the rise, I got a chance to have a Zoom conversation with the president. I told him how I lost my job due to COVID and explained how tough it was to be laid off so suddenly. During that conversation, not only did the president give me encouragement, he also let me know that he understood how valuable our workers in the country are and how important it was to take care of our workers. When he got elected, he put those words into action. Mind you, the IBEW was one of his earliest supporters when he decided to run for president. So believe me when I tell you, I remember those promises that he made. He promised to reach across the aisle and invest in rebuilding and modernizing our infrastructure, to bring back American manufacturing so that we could get back to building things in this country. During the campaign, I remember and repeatedly heard him say how he acknowledged how unions built the middle class. Here we go. And he also stated that he would be the most pro-worker president that we've ever had. He made it clear that he believes a pension is a promise, and as a president, he would do whatever it takes to protect the retirement security of union workers across the nation. He also promised to be a jobs president by putting blue-collar America to work to rebuild our economy. 2 years later, I think we all can agree. Promises were made and promises were kept. The American Rescue Plan not only helped pull our economy out of the hole created by COVID-19, it saved the pensions of millions of hardworking Americans and assured the security of my own retirement. The bipartisan infrastructure law won't just modernize our economy. Thanks to President Biden, I had to catch myself. Thanks to President Biden, a $62 million federal investment from the bipartisan infrastructure law will put millions of Americans back to work, including hundreds of my local 103 brothers and sisters at the Terminal E modernization project at Boston's Logan Airport. The CHIPS Act will make America a global leader in advanced manufacturing again, ensuring that semiconductors crucial to today's technology are made right here in the USA, not China. The Inflation Reduction Act won't just lower energy costs. It will create an untold number of energy jobs. It also comes with some of the strongest worker protections we've ever seen, because President Biden knows that we don't just need more jobs. We need more middle-class union jobs. Joe Biden kept his promises to working America, and for that, I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you.
With that being said, I'm proud to introduce the greatest champion of American workers. Ladies and gentlemen, the 46th President of the United States, President Joe Biden.
Great job. I'm impressed. I really am impressed. Good job. Love you. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, everyone back there. What a great, great crowd. And I tell you what, if I thought I could have ever spoken as well as you did when I was your age, I'd have never thought of being president. No, really, thank you. Please have a seat. With your permission, I'm going to take my coat off. That doesn't mean I'm going to speak any longer. Folks, welcome to the White House, everybody. And thank you, Lavette, for this. This law is for you and for the millions of people like you, good, decent, hard-working Americans. And how about James Taylor, a voice that heals our soul and unites a nation and a good friend? I don't know where James is probably smart enough to be under the shade of the tree over there, or I've taken off. But James, thank you, thank you, thank you. And we're joined by many champions for the American people. The first one of my best champions, is the First Lady, Jill Biden. I thought she was teaching, but she's here. Vice President Harris, who's not only a great vice president, but become a great friend. And the second gentleman, as well as Speaker Pelosi, and Leader Schumer, and Joe Manchin. Joe, thanks for sticking with what you said you'd do. Appreciate it. And the committee chairs who worked for almost 2 years to make this law real. And all the House and Senate Democrats who stood together and never, ever, ever gave up. This couldn't have happened without every single one of you, and that's in the literal sense in the Senate. Every single one was required because the other team didn't want to play. And all our distinguished guests, CEOs, advocates, activists, thank you for joining us. And what a great day. Exactly 4 weeks ago today, I signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law, a single most important legislation passed in the Congress to combat inflation, and one of the most significant laws in our nation's history, in my view. I said it then, and I'll keep saying it. With this law, the American people won, and special interests lost. Say it again. The American people won, and special interests lost. Folks, we're going to lower prescription drug costs, lower health insurance costs, lower energy costs for millions of families. I'm going to take the most aggressive action ever to confront the climate crisis and increase our energy security, ever in the whole world. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. We're going to build a future, the future, here in the United States of America, with American workers, with American companies, with American-made products. And after years of some of the biggest corporations in the United States paying zero in federal income tax, they'll now have to begin to literally pay their fair share. Today offers proof that the soul of America is vibrant, the future of America is bright, and the promise of America is real. It is real. It is real. This is an extraordinary story being written today in America by this administration as I step all over my coat. Good thing my mom's not around. But look, you're an awful lot of brave allies out there in the Congress. You took a lot of heat, and by so many determined advocates and activists all across the country. And as I look out on this lawn, I see leaders who made the government of America begin to work again, work for the people, not special interests, for the people. Folks, look, elected officials who stood up to the millions of dollars in attack ads from special interests, business leaders who were willing to endure the criticism of many of their colleagues, and so many people who fought for years to lower prescription drug prices and tackle the climate crisis. This is your victory. This is your victory, and that's a fact. And you deserve a huge round of applause. Give them applause, all these people who stood up, every one of them. And let's hear it for the workers in the labor unions, mayors and local officials, environmental activists, students and young people, advocates for senior citizens and families. This is what it looks like when the American government works for the people. When we tell the powerful interests, no, you're not going to get your way. This time, not this year, not this time, not now. I say to some of my colleagues who've been around long, how long we've been fighting pharma, how long we've been taking on these interests. From the time I got to the Senate 720 years ago. I'm serious, think about it. Let's be honest. Passing this law wasn't easy. I proposed it as soon as I got here, basically. And I've said that day that I was determined to work with Republicans. And I've done that on historic laws like the infrastructure law. Republicans came across the aisle and they've worked with us. And we got it done. Over $1.2 billion to reshape this nation's infrastructure. The CHIPS and Science Act and the PACT Act for veterans and their families. In fact, I think it's fair to say we've achieved more bipartisan agreement in these nearly 2 years in my presidency than anyone thought was even remotely possible when I entered office. So I thank the Republicans who stood up. And I'm proud of it. It's been good for the country. But I believe Republicans that could have and should have joined us on this bill as well. After all, this bill cut costs for families, help reduce inflation at the kitchen table, because that's what they look at, how much of their monthly bills and how much do they have to pay out for their necessities. And it gave them just a little more breathing room, as my dad would say. This bill will lower the deficit. This bill alone is going to lower the deficit by $300 billion over the next decade, because it's going to pay less for prescription drugs. And that's on top of the $350 billion we reduced the deficit my first year. $350 billion reduction. And for this fiscal year, $1.5 trillion reduction in the deficit. So I don't want to hear it anymore about big spending Democrats. We spend, but we pay. Ladies and gentlemen, the last guy had this job, well, let me put it this way. This bill finally delivers on a promise that I've made to the American people for decades. But Republicans choose not to join us. In the end, every single Republican voted against this historic law. So it fell to the Democrats to meet this moment and deliver for the American people. And that's exactly what we did. We pay more for our prescription drugs than any developed nation in the world. Let me say that again. In America, we pay more for prescription drugs than any developed nation in the world. And there's no rhyme or reason to that. For years, so many of us have been trying to fix this problem. But for years, Big Pharma blocked Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices. But not this year. Not this year. This year, the American people won, and Big Pharma lost. Now, Medicare will have the power to do what so many Democrats and Republicans in the past talked about doing: lower prescription drug prices. And seniors will see their out-of-pocket costs for the prescription drugs limited to $2,000 a year. They cannot pay a penny more than $2,000 a year, no matter how high their drug costs are, whether for cancer drugs or other drugs that can raise up to $70,000, $80,000 a year based on need. A maximum yearly cost of $2,000. And if you're on Medicare and you have diabetes, your cost of your insulin will be $35 for every insulin. And we wanted to cut the cost for insulin for everyone, including the hundreds of thousands of children with type 1 diabetes. I'll not ask for a show of hands, but I bet a lot of you out there have diabetes or your children do. But Republicans blocked limiting that cost to $35 for children. It only cost $10 for this prescription to be made and packaged. $10. And drug companies charge families about 30 times more than that for every vial of insulin. Look, I'm deadly earnest about this. Imagine being a mom or a dad. Looking at your child, you know the needs of insulin to live, and not having the money to pay for it. Not a joke. Think about it. Think about what you'd think about at the time. Think about how you'd feel if you didn't have the insurance and didn't have the money. It's wrong. It's not who we are, and we're going to fix that too. We're going to come back at it and lower the cost of life-saving insulin for children and families as well. Last year, A family of four saved $2,400 through the American Rescue Plan, which I've signed into law. And this new law also locks in place the one we passed a month ago, the one we're here for today. It's going to lower health care premium costs for families and get their coverage under the Affordable Care Act by about $800 a year. Folks, for decades, climate deniers have blocked any meaningful progress and delaying and just pretended there wasn't a climate crisis. I remember back in 1989, I introduced the legislation about climate. No one wanted to hear it. I mean, no, not many wanted to hear it. But guess what? This year, nobody can deny there's a crisis. I have flown in a helicopter with governors of 5 states over this last year over the fires and the burning tundra, the burning forest. And guess what? More land, Gov, has been destroyed in the United States of America than the entire your state of New Jersey from top to bottom. That's how much land has been wiped out. And we have drought. The Colorado River is becoming a stream. So much is happening that nobody can doubt. Nobody can any longer doubt that the climate crisis is real, and we're beginning to respond to it. But folks, nobody ever in history, nobody this year, the American people won, the climate deniers lost, and the Inflation Reduction Act takes the most aggressive action to combat climate, as the speaker said, ever. Over $360 billion. Folks, it offers working families thousands of dollars in energy savings with tax credits and rebates to buy new and efficient appliances. Weatherize their homes, saving hundreds of dollars a year because they're not going to have the heat seeking out through the windows or doors or the air conditioning. It provides tax credits for purchasing heat pumps, rooftop solar, electric stoves and ovens, and so much more. It gives a tax credit up to $7,500 to buy a new electric vehicle or a fuel cell vehicle made in America. And for the first time, you can get a tax credit if you buy a used electric vehicle. American automobile companies and American labor are committing billions of dollars and a great deal of hard work and ingenuity to make electric vehicles and batteries. Because of the infrastructure law, we're going to have 500,000 electric charging stations on our highways across America installed by the IBEW. And they're all going to be made in America. This law will create good-paying union jobs, increase energy security. By the way, I keep talking about union jobs. I'm not anti-business. I'm a capitalist. But here's the deal. The reason I push everyone to use union labor is because they're the most skilled labor in the world. The end of the day, let's hear this out for real. The end of the day, you pay a little more to get the best, but it lasts a lot longer, it's a lot more certain, and it does things that nobody else can do. And by the way, when I hear people say, Biden, you're talking about union, and what about all these people go to college? Guess what? Try being a IBEW member that introduced me. 5 years of apprenticeship. 5 years, like going back to college plus a year. 5 years. You're getting paid, but you're not getting paid a regular salary. It takes 5 years to qualify. So folks, let's give them credit for what they deserve. They're not only good at what they do, they work like hell to get to be able to do what they do. Look, and this legislation is going to help us triple wind power, unleash American manufacturing to own the global market on electric vehicles. We're going to fight the environmental justice and create clean energy jobs and apprenticeships in frontline, fence line communities that have been smothered by the legacy pollution. Tommy, Senator Carper, I was going around today meeting a lot of people out here inside. And one woman said, I'm from Delaware. Remember Route 9? Tommy don't know what Route 9's about. It's one of those fence-line communities where all of the pollution, all those factories. I grew up in a little town called Claymont, Delaware, when I was a kid, and it's right on the Pennsylvania state line. We're the largest refineries in the world. More refineries and in that area than anywhere, including Houston at the time. Mom would drive me to school going to 3rd grade at Holy Rosary. She'd turn on, when there was a frost on the window, literally, you'd turn on the windshield wiper and there'd be an oil slick in the window. That's why we had the highest cancer rates of any state in the nation for a long time. Folks, they're the people under my leadership who are going to get help first. They're going to be the people helped first. And look, this is about a future made in America. And I mean it sincerely. For decades, the biggest corporations in America fought to block a fair tax code. Under my predecessor, there was a $2 trillion tax cut, not a penny of which was paid for. And it mainly benefited the wealthiest 1% of the American people and the biggest corporations. 55 of the Fortune 500 companies made $40 billion and then 2020 and didn't pay a single penny in federal income tax. But this year, even though some of the biggest companies in America flooded capital with lobbyists and money, they lost and the people won. No corporation will have to pay, they'll have to pay a minimum tax of 15%, just 15%. The days of billion-dollar companies paying zero in taxes is over, I promise you. And folks, let's be crystal clear about something. No one, I said when I was running, I said when I got elected, and I've said every month since then, no one earning less than $400,000 a year in America will pay a single penny more in federal taxes as long as I'm the president. That's a commitment I made in the campaign, a commitment I'm keeping. This law is going to make a big difference for middle class and working class families. Finally, giving them a little bit, as my dad would say again, breathing room. It's a big step forward for the country. But it won't surprise you to hear that many Republicans are saying, what's their platform when you ask them? You hear the Republican leader saying, undo everything we've done. The Republican leader in the House has already said the #1 economic priority if they win back the House is to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. #1. The guy in charge of electing Republicans in the Senate, Rick Scott of Florida, proposed a plan. I wish I had enough copies to hand, but go online and look at it. I really mean this. It's serious because they're going to make it hard for you to believe. Proposed a plan requiring Congress to vote on the future of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid every 5 years. It's up for reauthorization. And I want to remind you, you paid for your Social Security. Every single paycheck from the time you were a kid, you paid for it. So every 5 years, Congress gets to vote, change, cut, reduce, or eliminate the entirety of Social Security. And it's not just Social Security. Everything as Senator Scott wants, everything in the federal budget to be up for 5 years. Nothing permanent. Nothing. That includes veterans benefits, Pell Grants, everything else. Look it up. It's hard to believe. I would think I'm exaggerating if I didn't look at it myself. And then along comes Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. As my mother would say, God love him. He thinks 5 years is too long to wait. He wants to put the vote, Social Security, Medicare on the chopping block every single year. Let me remind you all again, you paid for Social Security. You paid for Medicare. It's taken out of every single one of your paychecks. These guys never give up. Well, guess what? We're not going to give up either. We're often told there's nothing to get done in Washington. Too often, we confuse noise with substance. Too often, we confuse setbacks with defeat. Too often, we hand the biggest microphones to the critics and cynics who delight in declaring failure, while those committed to making real progress do the hard work of governing. Making progress in every country as big and complicated as ours is difficult. It is not easy, and it never has been. But I know with conviction, commitment, and patience, progress does come, and it's coming now. And when it does come, people's lives are better off. All people. The future becomes brighter. The nation is transformed. Look what we already accomplished together. The historic American Rescue Plan has taken us from economic crisis to economic resurgence. Jobs are up. People are back to work. Since we came to office, we've created nearly 10 million jobs, a record for any presidency up to this point. 3.7% unemployment, nearly a 50-year low in this country. More small business credit than any time before in our history. And American manufacturing is coming back. 6,680 manufacturing. Where's it written that says America can't lead in manufacturing? Where is that written? And guess what? For all the criticism I got and the help you gave me for gas prices, they're down more than $1.30 a gallon since the start of the summer. We're making progress. We're getting other prices down as well. But we have more to do, but we're getting there. We passed the once-in-a-generation infrastructure law that's going to modernize America, roads, bridges, ports, airports, deliver clean water, high-speed internet to every community, eliminate every lead pipe over the next 10 years, go in every home, in every school. Look, I signed the first meaningful gun safety law in nearly 30 years. You did it. I signed it. But guess what? I'm not stopping here. We are going to ban assault weapons. There is no godly reason for them. We just passed one of the most significant veterans health care pacts in a decade, the PACT Act, providing veterans and their families who lived exposed in the area in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other places, exposed to burn pits, 8, 10 feet deep, size of a football field, with everything from jet fuel to other pollutants to sometimes human bodies in that pile, breathing it day in and day out. And so many coming home with cancer, so many not coming home. We made a sacred commitment. I made one and you all did too. That whoever we send into harm's way, we give them all they need to do the job when they're there. And we take care of them and their families when they come home, and we're going to do that. We're going to do that. We just passed the groundbreaking CHIPS and Science Act. It's going to ensure that the technologies of the future are made in America. At least 10,000 jobs. These are good-paying jobs, by the way. Decent jobs. And what we're talking about here, you know, it used to be, I know my colleagues are tired of hearing me saying it, but we used to invest almost 2% of our entire GDP 30 years ago or longer in research and development in America. That's why we led the world. Now we're doing about 0.7%. We used to be number 1, now we're number 9. China used to be number 8, now they're number 2. And the rest of the world is coming up. And now the Inflation Reduction Act. All this progress was declared a failure before it was a success when we introduced it. We didn't give up, though. We kept at it. We had a vision, a plan, and we stuck to it. And the result is we're getting the job done for the American people, and we're just getting started. Together, we'll champion investments that lift all American working families, provide for the future for our kids. I know it's been a hard few years in this country. The challenges we face are among the most difficult in history. But I have to tell you, as I stand here today, and a lot of you know me well, I am more optimistic than I've ever been in my entire life about America's future. We just have to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. There is nothing we've ever set our mind to, nothing that we've not been able to accomplish, nothing beyond our capacity. And to just remember, who we are. We stand together. There's nothing beyond our capacity. May God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mrs. Lipp. So this is John Podesta, and his office is 2 doors down from yours.
I work with Julie. I work with Jean. That's with John.
But this is the implementation. So here it says.
How's that going? I did rock.
Thank you.
Once I pay for my hotel and my food, that's all I'll have to spend. That's like my rationale. It's not to get out there. Just like 2 orders. That's just what we make. Staff.